Sometimes, a lot of times we'll go through and have some ideas, but we won't, we'll all have our own copies and we'll bring them, like for the department heads, then we'll have one final copy. I think in the past, we've always just had the chairman, you know, initial or whatever, that it's the consent of the board. You know, like Steve might rate somebody as meets expectations, I might think they exceeded, we'll sit here and hash it out amongst ourselves, and then have one final one that stays for their personal file.
So we need to set up a meeting for the end of November.
And what's missing here is the evaluation, a numerical evaluation from what I could picked up, which I think is a pretty good thing. More pertinent as to what's happening and probably more valuable to all concerned.
You know, and again, like I said, as we get back into doing this, we might decide we want to take elements from both forms and,
Okay.
you know.
So that's the one you like?
This one here, it's
That one, okay.
simplified. I know in the past we had talked about taking the highest and the lowest off, you know, to make it just 3 categories.
And I can
because,
certainly do that. I certainly have time to do that.
you know, because if someone is way above or way below, that should show up in the comment and be something that's going to be addressed over the course of the year.
Right.
Would you be on board if we simplified it and made it
Oh, yeah.
meets,
Okay.
exceeds, or does not?
Perfect. I can do that.
Yeah.
I'll have them ready for the next meeting.
All right. And then you'll, once we approve it, you'll get them out to the department heads
I
too.
will, yeah. Yep.
Perfect.
I'm all set.
Okay. All right. Norman?
I guess I bear good news tonight.
Good.
Start off on the right foot.
None of this
Just
been
wanna-
too bad.
Just want to give you an update that the village septic repair project is now complete. We reported earlier this summer, the 4 leach beds were replaced. The engineers have come in, confirmed that the flow to each of the 4 has been equalized, so we know that that's operating as it was intended. For the last few weeks, they completed the installation of the flow meter. So we actually know what our volume is running through the system now on a daily or weekly basis. You may remember prior to that, all we had was an hour meter on the pumps, and we would calculate what the manufacturer's flow rates were and estimate. Now with the flow meter in place, it's been in since last Wednesday, a little over a week, and we now can confirm that the flow is pretty close to what the pumps implied, though probably about 10 to 12% less volume than we thought. So the pumps were supposedly operating at 40 gallons per minute. We learned that they actually only are operating about 34 gallons given head pressure, blah, blah, blah. But the important thing is that we now have the completed system all installed, operating as it should. The meters tell us that we've got lots of volume remaining. We're operating at approximately 10 to 15% of capacity. So that's substantially less than what we were years ago. The biggest reason for that is when we last had taken measurements on this, the Tamworth Inn was in operation. It no longer is. And the Tamworth Distillery, which replaced it, is no longer connected to the system for its production waste. As part of the grant, we had to identify what the contributing factors were to the failure. We recognized there were design issues, construction issues, and also operational. 100% of all of their post-production waste now is being taken off-site. So all that's flowing from that location is basically what I call bathroom or an equivalent to domestic use. So what's left at this point is we hope next week the final requisition for payment will be set in, releasing whatever holdback we had. The work was all done as it was intended. The engineers have verified that. We had one last change order to put through that's delayed it a little bit, but I would hope that by the beginning of next week, the final requisition will be sent in. Give you one more piece of paper to handle. We set that in, and we're pretty much good to go. So we've got, as I said, probably 85% of capacity remaining on the system. So that's all pretty good stuff.
Well, the news with the change order in the last minute, that's been par for the course anyway, right?
Yes, it
Every
has.
time you come in, there's some little
There's
surprise,
another
but it all
change
gets
order.
done, so, good.
So that's all good. I probably, after the final requisition has been processed and everyone's been paid, I'd probably like to come back in and talk about what I see as our exposure in the future for potential failure going forward, your lessons learned and so forth. I thought it'd be appropriate to come back after it's truly done and to revisit that, and tonight just leave it on a high note. It's done, it's fixed. And
Tell us
we're all
tonight it's
pleased.
mostly done, and afterwards you'll tell us it's done, and then what's not gonna be done for as long, right?
I think what we need to talk about is how we prevent it from happening again. I think that's the next step after we put this one to bed. So I just want to thank the selectmen, Darlene, and everyone who was so much help getting the grant processed and playing a critical role in getting this thing fixed. Thank you.
Nice job, well done. Good for town.
Yes, it
Way
is.
to go.
Well, as I said, quite a bit of capacity now. We were able to have some new user who wanted to come online. We've got the capacity.
And we'll avoid all the jokes that could go with that.
Too bad Pat's not here.
I know, Pat would be having a field day
Pat would be
for sure.
very happy to hear that.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Do we have anything else for Norman? Nothing? Noise complaint residents, who wants to go first? Take a number.
Well,
Yeah, I got one noise
some
up
of them,
there.
yeah, I know, parking in the wrong spot too.
There's new lights that came in this afternoon.
Okay.
And I don't, a lot of those people I don't think are expected to be here till 6. I did not call anybody, so I don't know if you want to do the signature file first.
Yeah, we'll do that. I was just working off the agenda.
Yeah.
Any interest, while we're doing this, can I ask Norman, any interest from the water company about metering water use?
Prior to the start of our repair project, I reached out to them to see if they would be interested in sharing an application for a grant to put meters on so that we could bill usage based on actual volume, not estimates. They never responded.
Not even a no.
So,
Thanks for trying.
That's not it.
It's the old business, yeah. The unchanging.
Actually, what has changed is
We do have a
sandwich
date,
is
right?
coming on the 6th, the 2nd.
Second,
Yeah.
tentatively.
Nope.
Is that no longer
It's
tentatively?
no longer tentative. I heard from her this morning.
Coming when?
On the 2nd.
Next meeting.
So I will call Paul. I've been waiting to tell Paul when
Good deal.
that was settled.
And I'm assuming they have his report.
He said he sent it to them, so I'm assuming that they do.
All set? Have the meetings from our October 4th meeting, the minutes from our October 4th meeting. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Non-public meeting minutes from October 4th. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Our other session of non-public from October 4th, 2017. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. You got a typo there.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that,
Correcting
that's what I
the-
was looking for.
correcting one small typo. I'll make the motion to approve our minutes from October 12, 2017.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Meeting minutes, non-public meeting minutes from October 12, 2017. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are you in favor enough to sign?
Yeah. Close.
Accounts payable check register in the amount of $2,192.67. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Put that so it's in the right order, yeah. Checkmate payroll authorization in the amount of $25,160.72. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We sign this now or wait?
Do you need to sign that one now?
This one today, not, okay. Intent to sign electric supply contract based on the regional negotiated price through the LRPC aggregation. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Accounts payable check register and the amount of $237,447.89. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Checkmate payroll authorization in the amount of $19,517.21. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did I miss it?
Yep. Driveway permit for 213 lot 68. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Driveway application permit for 410-006. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I did the register earlier. Here's the accounts payable manifest, the amount of $237,447.89. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Intent to cut for map 410 lot 44 with the access coming off Route 113. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Intent to cut for map 414 lot 37, map 202 lot 33, with the access points coming from Hollow Hill and Cleveland Hill. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're off the hook, we both agree. Intent to cut map 403 lot 1 with the access coming off Route 113A Chinook Trail. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Me too.
You signed it already, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just curious about them.
Oh.
Not that I want it, you know. Oh, this is,
That's a supplement.
Yeah, and I
So
believe
that cut's already done.
right, and that, we didn't ask the monitor to go out on that one.
I don't remember what
so.
it was, I don't think
I
so.
don't think we did on that one. Current use land use change tax collector's warrant. Motion to approve.
Second,
All in favor?
can I wait? Can I haven't had a chance to read it. I mean, I haven't,
Take a minute. Suspend the vote.
must have, oh, yes, I did.
You didn't
That
like
one
the
I
second
know.
page, though.
There it is.
Oh, you did it. See this?
Dan.
You didn't like the second page. It's only half of a yes vote.
You have to slow down, Dan.
I know.
Have a yield tax levy, a timber tax levy in the amount of $4,096.41. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alright. We covered those. It's pretty handy to 6.
I'd like to say something if possible, Thad Barrier. That truck right there was a prime example of what we're interested in is, I noticed you, Dan, looked out the window 8 or 10 times and we're sitting having this meeting, but that was disruptive to everybody here. It takes your mind off what you're doing. You wonder why they're sitting there idling for 15 minutes, but that kind of is a small version of what's going on with the racetrack and how, for those of us in certain spots in town and different times when they're running bikes or whatever, or who knows what mufflers they have, how it just overpowers your day and you're out in your yard doing whatever you want, and you've got this background, noise that just eats at you. I've noticed, I was kayaking in the middle of Chicago Lake on Columbus Day weekend, and Route 16 sounded like kind of an even flowing waterfall, but way in the background I could hear this growling which almost overpowered the noise from Route 16 in the middle of Chicago Lake. And so we live on Bryant Road, and we fixed up, put a lot of time and effort into an old family place just down the road that we're trying to sell now. And we've had to disclose to the realtor that there is this racetrack, which is kind of like when you sit on the porch, you're looking right out at it and you hear it right in your face when they're running. So we feel like that could be a real problem with trying to sell the house to the certain number of people. There are some that don't care about it, but anyway, so we were just wondering what was being done to keep tabs on what kind of noise is coming out of there, what decibel levels, and who's responsible for that. So that's all I have to say at the moment.
Who else?
What's that?
Looking across, see who else would
I
like
don't know.
to.
No, I know.
I'm Jeff Burke, and from my house, which is about 3.5 miles line of sight from the racetrack, it is far and away the loudest ambient noise in our neighborhood. It's very, it's basically in your face. The thing I'm puzzled about, though, is that my understanding is that we have a sound ordinance that's 69 decibels at the border. I have a shop vac that the manufacturer says produces 74 decibels. And when my wife is out vacuuming out the car outside, it's not like Dan is calling me complaining because my shop vac is too loud at 74 decibels. So it seems to me that if they are paying attention to this sound ordinance and that they're producing a lot more sound than 69 decibels. And I don't understand. Now maybe, I know there's a lot of, let's say, smoke and mirrors when it comes to how you measure the sound and so on and so forth, but I look at it as a pretty big distraction, something I really value. One of the reasons why I live here is I really like quiet. And I also have wondered if I want to sell my property, if this is a distraction and it reflects on the value of my property insofar as having to disclose to somebody, yes, you have a racetrack here, it's not going to be country living with peace and quiet. It's also my understanding that when the racetrack was built, there were a list of recommendations that they could, CMI could do to mitigate the effects of sound, such as building berms and so on and so forth. And it's also my understanding that they did none of these. And just by the fact, the way the geology is, that they're basically built at a bowl that's just projecting all that sound right towards the village. I have heard reports of people who have been very surprised how loud it is on Silver Lake and Awana Lancet and Mountain Road. And it seems to me that, again, if they're adhering to the ordinance for 69 decibels, that either I don't understand it or something isn't right.
They're older than the decibels, that's what's.
Thank you, Jeff.
So I'm certainly willing to talk. Linda Medeiros, 379 Whittier. I sent in a pretty detailed letter, and
Yeah,
I
we looked at
would
that.
Say it's shocking how loud it is. There's no possible way that it's complying with the noise ordinance. So, and then the other thing that I think is of concern to me certainly is, it certainly appears from their Facebook page that this is a spectator situation. They're bringing in spectators, which if anyone knows anything about the racing world, spectators like noise. That's part of the whole attraction. So they're pretty much advertising online that this is, they're allowing spectators in. And my biggest point here is, not to sit around and just sort of complain, but to say, look, if we're monitoring it and they're complying, great, but they're not. And there's nothing on the day that I got really frustrated and came down and started this process to say, what do I do? There's nothing in place right now that anybody can even do if they think it's too loud. There's no one you can call, there's nothing happening. And so there are, if you do a little research online, there are services that can monitor this for you. The town can investigate those. You can retain companies that are going to set up monitoring systems that can be placed at the border that do this. That's their function. And I certainly would like to see something like that done. I think we need something that's consistently available so that it's fair for everybody. We shouldn't be wondering, like this gentleman, wow, is that complying? Isn't it complying? We should have a way to know. And there are systems that can be put in place that will allow for that. So.
Hope Requart, we're at Canna Farm on 1117 Whittier Road. Just to kind of reinforce what everybody else said, I work outside. We have a farm, we're outside all day. I can tell when they have car clubs in, and I can tell when they have experienced drivers, and I can tell when they have people that are learning, because the people who are learning go slower, they're quieter. The car clubs screech their tires, and that's what I find the most irritating, is the tire screeching.
I've heard that.
I tried putting on hearing protectors, headphones while I was working. All that did was that I couldn't hear the crickets next to me, but I could still hear them. I can hear them inside all the buildings. you know. What I'm curious about is what are the consequences for them going over the, and I saw something on the board saying that they were supposed to pay $1,000 fine each day that they go over that limit. And my fear is that the backers behind this have got so much money that, you know, sure, they go over, they pay the $1,000, they go over, they pay the $1,000. They're not gonna cut down on the sound they make, they're just gonna pay those fees. And I'm not gonna get any benefit from it. So, I mean, yes, I wanna know how it's measured and how it can be done properly, but I also wanna know how to reinforce the consequences.
Thank you.
I'm Christine Johnson, and I live at 827 Whittier Road. And I can tell you, I live real close. And last Friday, I work at home a lot. I'm an independent bookkeeper. I was in my house, my windows were shut, and the noise was so bad, it's like having a swarm of bees going around your head for hours. You can't even turn the radio up loud enough to tune it out. And you know, I've lived there 25 years, and I've never experienced anything like this. It's really saddening. And, you know, my husband and I are out at our garden trying to talk. We can't even talk to each other because the noises are so loud. They're up there screeching their tires. There's not just one car going around that track, numerous times. And I think, well, we can sell our house. Well, who's going to buy it? Anybody walks in the yard and hears that, they're gonna go down the street. They're not gonna come and buy my house. And I don't wanna sell my house. I've lived there 25 years. So I just feel like, you know, Linda, my neighbor down the street, contacted me, and it was so important for me to make it here tonight that I left my Bible study to get here. And the town of Tamworth needs to try to help us out, you know, because we shouldn't be subject to these kind of noises. And I don't, you know, there must be something that can be done.
Anybody else? Amy?
I just feel like you guys as a board, who, my understanding is you enforce the noise ordinance, and your top priority should be taking care of residents and making sure that this ordinance is enforced absolutely to the letter of the law, because this has changed my world. I'm not a noise person, and it's the incessant round and round. It's not like a road where they're going and they pass by. It grates on every, it makes me really sad. So what I want to see is that you take this very seriously, because your allegiance is to us, all the people who have lived here for years and years, not to the people who come and go on that track and could really probably give a hoot about Tamworth and how they're affecting. I mean, I don't live as close as these folks, and I can't even imagine living on Gilman Valley Road and being at St. Andrews. It affects you on a visceral level, that noise. So I want to see it enforced, and I don't know how that's going to happen, but I don't want to see it be a piece of paper that gets put over to the side and that they can pay their way out of this. I find it really, really upsetting, actually.
Thank you. Anybody else? We'll let Scott go first, Damon. You're only the press, so the residents get preference. I know you're a resident too, I'm teasing.
I'm just curious about the property appraisal process there, because for quite a while they were assessed at 800,000, I think it was, and recently went up to 3.5 million. But I know that's kind of a drop in the bucket compared to what it cost them to do the work up there. And do you guys have any insight or how you arrived at $3.5 million figure? Because the big thing was it was going to help the taxes of Tamworth, but if, you know, these people on Old 25 can get abatements because of the sound, that puts the burden of property tax on all the others that may not, you know, get an abatement. So I'm just curious how you handle that and who does that and what it's based on.
Yeah, our assessor did it. Beyond that, if you talk to Rod, either of you, any more about how he assessed it, yeah.
So you have a company, the guy that comes in and appraises it, and you
Yes.
have to follow a certain criteria.
Yeah, it's the same assessor we've had for a number of years here in town.
Same guy, same folks, but he must have to follow a state guideline or something. I mean,
This is a great assessor's guide.
it just seems like a
Or you
really,
just pull the number out of the,
I don't know, it just seems like a low figure from what they spent, you know. And I just don't quite understand how come they get assessed so low when they were.
I mean, again, I don't know what was or wasn't spent up there, so
It's
I
not
couldn't
based on what
comment on
it
that.
gets
It's
spent.
what it's worth.
it's what it's worth.
It's
So,
what it's worth.
right, they're assessing just all that's up there right now is the pavement. So you have almost 3 miles of
Yeah.
pavement, that's what's being assessed.
$50 million worth of payment.
But it doesn't matter,
Oh, it doesn't matter?
no, it
No,
doesn't matter
that's
what it
the
costs.
value is.
What's what the value is.
Of a
for
I'm
now.
gonna
For
trust
now,
this,
and that-
right, I'm gonna
every
trust the
year he's
assessor,
gonna
because I
go
don't know
out
how to
there
value pavement,
And see
so-
what else is there.
Right, so they won't accumulate any value until they start building houses, is that correct?
Right, till they start doing more work. Right.
So I don't imagine that the town might have a, court admissible decibel reader, but I imagine that the state police might. So would it be, I'm just on their behalf, would the proper step be to ask the state police if they could use their decibel reader? Would that be the solution?
I wouldn't think so.
I don't think they have one.
You know, as far as that goes, I respect everybody's opinions. I've heard everybody. You know, we've had a lot going on this year, and I'm not going to lie, from a personal standpoint, the noise ordinance is secondary. We've been trying to rebuild the police department. We've had that going on. You know, we didn't start getting any comments, negative comments, until middle of August. At that point, there'd been stuff going, I believe, for a good portion of the summer. So that, you know,
Well, they officially opened Labor Day.
I understand that they had an official opening or whatever, and that's what prompted the timeline a lot of this. But knowing that they've had other stuff going on throughout the summer, it you know, made me take it all with a grain of salt and continue what I personally have been doing, which was sort of take a wait and see attitude with this. Because again, we don't have the equipment for monitoring, et cetera, et cetera. I did go up there 2 or 3 weekends ago. They had one of the clubs there. Went up and watched from the front stretch where the cars are all going by. I gotta say, the noise didn't seem like much of anything to me when I stood right outside their inner retaining wall. Just let me please finish, and then I'll get on to other people, okay? You know, it really seemed no different than, you know, if you're walking along Route 16 or Route 25, as far as you hear something go by. I'm sure it's not, I don't have it calibrated professionally, but I do have a decibel meter, which I brought. Didn't test inside because our ordinance doesn't address that. It addresses sound levels outside, and I was right on the property line. I never had a reading that exceeded the decibel limit. I realize your particular issue was motorcycles. I don't know, it was cars when I was there. But I picked up, you know, continual ambient noise from Route 25 that far exceeded anything I picked up from the Club Motorsports facility. Again, I'm not discounting what anybody said, I'm saying what I saw. I know people say that from a distance you can hear the facility. Jeff, you talk about being 3 miles away. I'm probably very similar distance when I'm up at my dad's. We're up high. You know, I might hear it. I don't know. I hear Route 25, Route 16, 113. Yeah, we are sort of country living. We're certainly far from a city, but we do have 3 very busy state highways that intersect our town and have, you know, noise and traffic constantly. We also have a good portion of our residents that make their living as loggers, carpenters, excavation contractors. I mean, any day of the week there's noise. I mean, I personally, from up on Great Hill, I can't distinguish, you know, and the folks on Whittier Road, Old 25, you got a different perspective. But speaking from myself, there's that. The ordinance, it's kind of poorly written. We've been in contact with legal counsel, knowing that there were going to be issues being raised by residents. One of the biggest things to come out of that is reinforced concerns that we on the board had is, you know, the enforcement of it. To patrol, who knows what we would or wouldn't pick up. You mentioned in your letter a permanent thing or service, and you mentioned again tonight. With that said, you know, a concern that we would have to take into consideration as the Board of Selectmen is how could we verify noises that are tripping a decimal meter are truly coming from that property, not something across the road, because there is a lumber outfit on the other side there on Old 25, or just, again, the traffic that's constantly going up and down Route 25. You know, so as a selectman, that's where, you know, I am coming from. Take off my selectman's hat. I don't really like the noise ordinance. I feel it targets one property, one business, and I wouldn't care what that business was. I wouldn't want one to be targeted like that, especially when the limit that's being imposed through that, any one of us would be in violation if we ran a chainsaw, lawnmower, snow blower in our own yard, and everybody does that. So that's, you know, personal. Again, Board of Selectmen, we get different things, but as a resident, you know, and folks talk about being here 25 years, I've been here 45 years, and if I make it another 45, I'll be here another 45. You know, and I'm not a zoning guy either. You know, that's another factor that plays into this. That's no secret. I want to stay as uninvolved in everybody's lives as possible. With that said, do you boys have anything to chime in? Yeah, okay.
I would actually, I apologize for being late, but I do live on Gilman Valley Road. I've lived there for over 10 years, been a resident of Tamworth for 30. And the noise, I mean, we are level with that racetrack. And it's constant, the whir and the peeling of rubber and the noise. It's not like, yes, you can hear the traffic mildly on Route 25. This is so annoying that I can't sit out on my deck. I've lived in this town for 30 years and I want to put my house for sale, and probably nobody's going to want to buy it because of all that noise. Because if you came there on a weekend to my house, all you would hear is that constant roar of the engines. Even my mother, who is half deaf, who said, oh, it's not going to be a problem, now it's bothering her because it's so loud. You can hear them inside my house. It's that loud. It's really, it's awful. And that's with the windows closed. So I can't even like open a window and enjoy, you know, a nice day because it's so bad. It really is emotionally draining, honestly. And who's gonna wanna buy my house? No one. And I'm stuck paying high taxes. You know, it's a nice home, I have a high tax. You know, I pay a lot to the town and it's just, it's horrible. I just have to say that. So, and you know, so to have some kind of ordinance or, I mean, you could come to my house and take your decibel reading there and you'd hear a lot. It's not so bad from 25, but from Gilman Valley Road where we live, it's horrible.
Do you think it would be over the 69?
Well,
Well over?
whoa, 69 is
I don't know
like
what
that car
69
going by right now. Yeah, that 69 is pretty low. Not being a sound engineer, but I know 69 is a little bit above conversation level. So I would say if someone started a chainsaw across the street right now, it would be that loud. You would hear it that loud. There's we have 1,000 feet 1,000-foot buffer owned by somebody else between us and the track. We have another 1,000 feet of our property as another buffer. But I think we're just in maybe a bad location, because you get the echo off Whittier, you get the downhill, or, downhill from the track, downwind from the track, westerly prevailing. And so when you have all those three factors together, it's well over 69. I would say it's, when you get 6 cars on that track at one time, you're hitting 90. Probably not as loud as a jet engine, but it's close.
Lindy?
With all due respect, I don't think anybody on the select board, their personal opinion is the issue. The issue is that the state of New Hampshire does allow communities that are going to have racetracks in their community to have a noise ordinance, which is why we have one. And I think the selectmen's job is to enforce our town ordinances. So if it's a little difficult, or if it maybe is inconvenient, that's not the issue. There seems to be some suggestions from the community that decibel monitoring could be done, and that seems to be the issue. If they are in compliance with the noise ordinance and the decibel monitoring shows that they are 69 or below, then we live with whatever it is. On the other hand, if it shows that they are above, then the ordinance needs to be enforced. So I think that the selectmen need to start actually determining what they need to do to enforce the noise ordinance that we have.
Thank you, Lindy. You had something, Christine?
Yes, you were saying about chainsaws and so forth. I live across the street from Ossipee Mountain Land Company. I'm all aware of what goes on there. I grew up on Route 16 in Ossipee. I've lived here all my life. And believe me, when that racetrack can drown out any noise they make at Ossipee Mountain Land Company with a loader, you can't even hear the loader running. It's way beyond 69 decibels. I'll be in my house, my neighbor will be on her lawnmower, which they say is 90 decibels. I read it on the internet. It probably might not be true, but that's what I read.
Everything on the internet's true.
Well, not necessarily. But I can't hear her mowing the lawn in the house, but I can hear the swarm of bees going around on the mountainside over there. So, like the lady in the back row just said, all we're asking is that there's an ordinance. Let's see what they're doing over there. I mean, I'm with the lady in the Gilman Valley. It just makes you ill. The noise is so, it just goes on and on and on for hours. It's not like just a motorcycle going down, motorcycle weekend. Heck, I'll take those any day of the week over that noise over there. I can't sell my house, and I'm a realtor, and I know I couldn't sell my house. Because anybody drove in the yard and heard that, they'd be crazy to buy my house, and I wouldn't blame them. And I doubt anybody though that the racetrack's gonna let them buy my house, because they're not gonna wanna listen to that all day long either. But that's all I have to ask.
I'm just, I understand what you're saying about how it feels like we're pinpointing just them. But if the ambient level of noise in the area was already at 59 with the lumber yard and the other things going on, the whole level is gonna go up a whole lot more. And that's where, yeah, maybe you have to figure out a way to find both of them. I don't know, but I understand what you're saying is that it doesn't seem fair to just pinpoint the racetrack when already there's a whole lot of noise coming from the lumber yard. I hear something in my neighborhood that goes off at like 2 o'clock at night, and it's loud. I have no idea what it was. I think it's the power plant.
Than
You
a
know,
spaceship.
and that's horrible too. Thank goodness they don't run the racetrack at 2 o'clock at night. But in any event, there has to be some way to either regulate the number of cars that go on the track at a time so that the sound level goes down, or make sure that the people who are driving there know what they're doing so that they're not screeching their tires.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to say, I personally think it's somewhat unfair to take a single day where you show up and say everything's fine. I mean, you know, I live out there, and some of the days are better than others, and I think anybody who lives out there is going to say that too. And some of the days are completely outrageous. So, you know, to have a system where if we call and say, wow, it's really loud today, and 2 days later someone goes and does a sound check is useless. So that's why I'm suggesting we need some type of monitoring system that's actually doing this on a consistent basis, because it isn't going to be the same one day to the next. And I think the motorcycle events in particular are extremely likely to be out of compliance just based on what they're doing. I mean, you know, there were videos from that motorcycle event that I put in a letter. I mean, there were like literally swarms of motorcycles going around the track at the same time. There's no possible way they're getting that under that decibel level. So there are things that can be done, and you know, I agree. I mean, this is the ordinance. It's the one that is in effect. They built the track knowing that ordinance was in effect, and they should be prepared to abide by it.
I agree with what you're saying about, you know, we live in this world where an airplane or a semi on Route 25 or many other things, the neighbor running a chainsaw or a riding mower, make noise, but the track is an addition to that, not equal to, but it just fills in all the other times where the quiet that we would all love to have in our own little piece of paradise that we've created for ourselves. We can't do that. But I liken the sound to odor as well. If someone had a massive pig farm upwind of your place, then that you couldn't open the windows and had to do something inside. You couldn't be in your yard, you know, because you couldn't stand the smell. Odor and sound don't know boundaries. So it's just, it grates at us, the ones that are down close, and it I don't know, it's hard to take out there, and, you know, it is decreasing the value of our properties as well.
And the pig farm is the way the wind is blowing. So if you're monitoring that on a certain day, the wind could be going where it's not hitting the monitor or the nose. And I think the chainsaw is a way of life. But,
Well, it's also not like all day long. I mean, this is like all day long. It starts at 9 and goes on all day long until like 5 o'clock. And, you know, nobody's doing that with others, you know. It's just not
Did you have
the
your hand
same
up, Becky?
quality.
Well, it's just a perspective on noise. I mean, the dull roar of the racetrack, yes. I live over on Turkey Street, I get the power plant. It goes all the time. What, 2 weeks ago, we had a generator running for
24/7 for 3 weeks.
4 weeks.
And that was a jet engine.
Every Wednesday night, starting at 6 o'clock, it's pop, 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 till 11. Used to only be on Wednesdays until dusk, then it went until they put lights in, and now it's Wednesday nights, Saturday nights, and Sunday nights, and that's the Sportsman's Outing Club. Sit on my porch, and you can hear every gunshot there is in the town of Tamworth. So if we want to talk property values and stuff like that, no offense, I have 16, I have 13, I have the power plant, I have the Sportsman's Gun Club, and I have the racetrack from 10 o'clock at night until 3 o'clock in the morning called Turkey Street, where they go 100 miles an hour with no mufflers on. So I think in order to get a true decibel reading, that is a concave. It acts as a clamshell, just no different than the Boston Pops. So you could be at their perimeter line and have a decibel reading that's actually normal, and 2 miles away, I mean, we used to hear people laughing and joking and giggling, riding up the gondolas up Mount Whittier, because it's just a concave.
You can't say things like that, Becky, it dates you drastically.
Well, I'm sorry, I've been dated around here. So I think the idea of getting a company who can weed out your ambivalence levels versus the perimeter levels versus what's happening 4 miles down the road is the way to go. Because I agree with you, you can be right next to that line on the track and you're not gonna get a 69 decibel reading, but you go, I mean, it's like Loudon. Go down the road from Loudon when they're running their NASCAR race 4 miles and you can hear it louder than you can in the parking lot at the NASCAR race, because that's sound travel. So our ordinance is for perimeter, and it may very well meet the perimeter, but it may not meet the bowl that's echoing it through the mountain range. They may have berms up, but that sound goes up and over that bowl and it projects it out. So I agree with you that maybe that sound ordinance isn't the best thing, but if we're going to do it for a track, I'd like to see it done for a few other things that are causing a lot of noise in this town. Or like you said, the sky lighting up at 2 a.m. because something happens down at that power plant that they light the entire world up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
You should be asleep at 2 in the morning,
I
Becky.
don't sleep at 2 o'clock.
Somebody told me once nothing good happens after midnight.
You gotta sit on Turkey Street and watch, but I agree with you that you're not gonna be able to do it yourself. You're gonna have to have somebody professional come in because there's too much ambience, back noise and stuff.
There's a lot going on all the time. I mean, we think we're Mayberry, but there's a lot going on all the time.
I just want to add to that, the ordinance is 69 at the border or any point further.
And 61 at the border, or any other point.
For
in
a certain,
town.
yes.
So,
So-
something's gonna have to be handheld or mobile or whatever it is. You know, I haven't been here very long, but I have a couple of opportunities where there was talk about, well, town meeting didn't vote for that, but we could do it anyway, with private funds. I think that's not the point in the whole system. The whole system is, you know, there was a motion or a petition or whatever to put this on the beginning of town meeting, whatever year it was, and everybody got a chance to vote, and they voted. And whether you think it's a wise decision or an unwise decision, whether you think it was something that you would have supported had you known more information or something, I think is immaterial at the moment. Selectmen have to enforce the, I have questions to ask our law firm, the town attorneys. I don't know if the way it's written means that the chief of police can go there, read the output, and say, I'm sorry, you have to shut this down, it's too loud. Or if the only consequence is a fine for a day or a part of a day, and I'm sure that that's material to the application of the thing. I found very interesting the things, I'm clueless as to noise, you know, I'm deaf. So it's pretty easy for me to just take them out and then the world's very quiet. But I was very interested in your letter about those, that you have some, at least some knowledge about systems that could be, certainly at an expense, where anyone in town could read whatever was located at specific points. And I have an idea that's not gonna be cheap, but I have an idea we have no choice. Because we do, you know, I mean, there's a number of things we shouldn't do. And, you know, spit in the face of the voters, I think, is high on the list, first on the list. As you say, it's or as someone said, you gotta first respond to the health and safety, and that's what this was purported to be, a health and safety thing. Given the recent adventures in the American Embassy in Cuba, it sounds like that's the deal. So I believe that we should get on the stick, include, if it's gonna include major use of funds, that it should certainly be in the budget. And if there's something as a stopgap that could be used, we should do that. Additionally, we should
Steve, I understand you can get an app on your iPhone that is a decibel meter. And I think we could solve a lot of this conjecture just by having a few people with their cell phone or a decibel meter. You can get one for $15. Just go down and stand on the border and see if we're all wet on this or not. I mean, there's a lot of ambient noise and so on and so forth, but I think if you went up and stood on their boundary and you held your phone up and it just, pegged it, you'd know there was a problem here. And I also understand there's sound engineering. I mean, of course, that probably wouldn't be court admissible, but it seems to me you could say maybe they are only 69 decibels, because Joe Binzak related how there's not only the sound of the volume, how loud it is, but there's also like the pressure behind it. This is analogous to volts and amps. The sound works in funny ways, but it's not just a simple lineal equation. You can have 69 decibels, but a mile away you can have 67 decibels, whereas my vacuum is making 74, but a mile away you won't hear it. It's not just all lineal. So anyway, I think just to have a few people take a casual measurement of sounds would even say if we're all wet on this, but I also think that it's my understanding that as selectmen, you guys took an oath to uphold town ordinances. There's a lot of people in town this is really bothering. That what's holding us back on this? I don't really understand. This is a clear and present danger or health, you could say health hazard when people are upset about it and it's causing them aggravation and stress. The school is right down near there. I think this should be looked into and find out what's going on.
Thank you, Jim. I just want to touch on one of your comments, Steve. You said, not to fly in the face of the voters. I would say that I don't feel that we've flown in the face of the voters, in as much as we don't have any equipment or system in place. You follow what you're saying, and Becky echoed the same sentiments there. If it's to be done, it's got to be done in a way that's fair. Because again, everybody does what they're going to do. I'm not going to tell anybody to go on anybody's property, because we certainly shouldn't do that. That's a poor idea. If you want to take a reading, you can tell us what you pick up, and whatever. At this point, we've heard from most of the public. Did you want to chime in on anything?
I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and I would mostly like to thank you all for having a mature, intelligent conversation. In the past, it hasn't been that way, and it's been very ugly and intimidating towards CMI, and I think that started out in a bad relationship between the town and CMI. It's unfortunate that we had put out a request for the manager, CEO, I don't even know what it is, of CMI to come here tonight so that he could give his defense or his explanations. So I think, me personally, the first step should be is to have him come in so we can have a mature, intelligent conversation with him. Let him hear your complaints without him being blasted and insulted and beat up as it has been in the past, so that we can sit down, have a mature conversation, and then let's hear from him what he's been doing to monitor it or what his plans are. Have your concerns, and then we go from there. What I don't want to see happen is, and based on the letter that I read that we got from the town attorney, I don't want to see us end up in court over this, because eventually I'm thinking that it might end up that way. If we end up in court and the court throws out this ordinance saying it's selective zoning, spot zoning, and that you're targeting one organization, I'm just saying, if that's the case, guess what? Now they can run 24/7 and make just as much noise as they want. You understand what I'm saying? I don't want that to
I
happen.
understand, but I have a law degree, I am a lawyer, and I have read a lot of those New Hampshire cases, and they really do not apply to this. I mean, I'm happy to discuss that with your counsel. I mean, they just don't. I have read those spot zoning cases.
Okay,
I'd heard that issue, and
Because, believe me,
I understand the
I
fear that you
feel
would
it.
have that
Yes,
could happen.
I don't
but-
want it to be thrown
But
out
the case
and
law
then we
that's
have
out
nothing.
there wouldn't apply to this.
Well, I'm getting, yeah.
yeah.
Do you want to see this go away? This is the only thing we
I don't
have.
wanna see it go away, but I also don't think it's, that's the kind of thing where I think you put fear into people to not
No,
exercise
I'm not trying to put-
their legitimate rights.
I'm trying to say, let's go about this maturely and sit down and let's have a discussion and see what we can come up with. I don't know, maybe it could be a recommendation because maybe there's too many going around at one time, maybe they can cut it down, which, I don't know any of this.
But
I would
Dan,
like-
you know that the head of CMI is not gonna say, oh, we're going above 69 decibels. I mean, he's just not gonna admit that. That's why I think, how much would it cost really to have somebody who's a sound engineer come up and monitor them for a few days?
Oh, no, I agree with that, Jeff.
And just so then we know, if he says, well, we're not, and yet we really are, then we know where to go. I don't think we can have the fox guarding the hen house here.
No, I agree that
Then
should
we
be
need to have
done.
something that would
But I'm
stand
just
up in
saying,
court.
don't you think that we should sit down with the owner first?
But what's he gonna say? Of course he's gonna say that we're not making too much noise. He's not gonna
I sure
say-
like to hear what he has to say.
Oh, of course, I would too.
Well then, what's the
we-
problem?
Well, why is it a problem to at least find out what's going on?
I don't know what's going on. The only way I'm gonna know what's going on is to get him in here so I can ask him questions.
No, but why not have a simple sound test done? Why not have somebody who has expertise in this field? How much is that gonna cost? We could pass the hat if it costs $500, have it done. Why not? Then we know where we're standing. Maybe it is, maybe all this is moot, maybe it is below 69. But I think the first thing, we have to have empirical knowledge about what the situation is. Then you guys can make a realistic decision, and if people have a problem with it, we know where we're coming from.
Let us do some looking on our end to see what there are for possible options. Did you have one last comment, Amy?
Yeah, what I would say is that the nature of what they're doing up there is very sporadically loud and less loud and quieter. Okay, so when it gets monitored, it cannot be one day or another day. It has to be over a broad spectrum, and if they know it's being monitored, they'll play the game. So I think everybody that's come in here to voice concerns wants the monitoring to be done in a broad-based manner that's gonna pick up those spikes. Because that's probably the most annoying part, is not knowing when it's gonna be really loud and what you might be planning outside. It's that sort of up and down and all over the place. It's very unsettling, and so the monitoring can't just be, we're gonna call CMI and say we're gonna be monitoring on Saturday and Sunday next week, because guess what? They'll tell everybody to put their mufflers on, right? And we want you to enforce the ordinance that we voted in. And we voted it in based on a lot of, I assume, legal advice and state statutes. We're allowed to have that ordinance, and we would like to have it enforced. And you were voted in because we trusted you to run this town.
Right, and again, we're not saying we're not, we're saying we weren't equipped to do so.
We want a fully on board Board of Selectmen enforcing the ordinance that's been in place since 2005. That's a long time.
And I know you haven't had a real chance to discuss this, but I was thinking that the next logical step might be to put out an RFP on a sound engineer, right? And then it doesn't cost you anything to find out, get some quotes, and then you can figure out if you have the money for it or not, right?
All right.
And one more thing, since you were saying it'd be nice, you invited someone from CMI to come, and here's some empty chairs and nobody was able to make it, which
But we should come back.
who knows why, but they could also view this wonderful recording here of everything that was said here tonight and mull that over and maybe get back to you instead of
Well, I'm
us-
hoping to, but we did put out the invitation and they had prior commitments, but they said that they're more than willing to come here.
Right. But I mean, they could view this footage and so we don't have to all sit down again, you know, and, you know, redo it all. But they could get back to you with what they feel is appropriate, a response to this meeting as viewed through the camera's eye.
Thank you, Pat. Becky, you're the last one for now.
I don't have anything.
You don't have anything, you just got your hand up. One thing I think we should do in an effort of fairness, we've heard the opposing commentary. We do have a letter here that was shared with us from the Commander Duffy from Troop E, thanking Club Motorsports for their hospitality for the State Police event on September 29th. Rosie's Restaurant. I'm not going to read the whole letter here, but their closing sentiment is they have the utmost respect for the Club Motorsport owners and employees. Their professionalism expands beyond their business. We are grateful for the patronage they have provided and look forward to continuing our partnership with Club Motorsports. The manager at the Days Inn in Tamworth saying that they have found the Club Motorsports folks to be polite, courteous, and professional, and they appreciate the increase in business. Yankee Smokehouse, they employ over 60 people, many of whom reside in Tamworth since Club Motorsports opened. Labor Day weekend, we did not have to cut any staff at a time when we normally did. M&V Convenience, business is not located in Tamworth, but 6 of our employees do reside there. It is our hope that Club Motorsports operation will spark more local employment as they grow their operation. And from the Greater Ossabaw Area Chamber of Commerce, they're hoping that the town can continue to support their various business members, including Club Motorsports, as it helps out the whole area.
Has a single Tamworth resident gotten a job up there yet? Or are there no
Ones that are
toilets
working
to
there.
swish
I
yet?
don't know if that's really.
I mean, it seems like Tamworth residents have been overlooked, you know, so far. They had a promise to hire all sorts of locals.
I didn't ask any of the folks from Tamworth who are working up there, but I'm not going to say their names without their permission, but there are several that I do know that are doing stuff up there. That said, you guys prepared to close the discussion and move on?
Lindy has her hand up.
No.
Just one last comment.
I'll get Lindy first, because that's his wife, and he'll get in trouble if she doesn't speak.
Okay.
so.
I think if Club Motorsports is an ethical, good business, that they would be perfectly willing to comply with an ordinance that we have had in place before they actually started working on their facility and opened it. So I don't imagine, if it's really a good business and they listen to the comments that the public has made, that they would have any objection to actually having the town enforce that ordinance. And whatever they need to do to comply with it, they would do, if they really are interested in being a good business in our town.
I'm sure they'll be watching this, because I understand that our meetings are really popular on their website. So. All right, you want to close this out, Christine?
Well, I appreciate the letters you just read, but I really doesn't think that it has anything to do with what we're here about tonight. We're talking about the noise ordinance, and that if it's more than 69 decibels beyond the boundaries of whoever's property. And that is the issue, and it needs to be addressed, and the town, I think it would be great if you could look into getting that information out there before we ever meet with, and I know the person that's the head of Club Motorsports, unfortunately, and, you know, I'm sure it'd be fine to sit there and talk with him, but I don't think that's gonna solve the problem.
Why did you say unfortunately? I'm curious.
Because I'm not a fan of his. I know the man personally, and I'm just not a fan of his, okay? But that's just a personal level. And that doesn't mean that the noise isn't still wallowing around my head. Even as I sit here, I can hear it. And it's just, you know, it's emotionally draining. And that's
Thank you,
all I
everybody.
have to say.
You have one last comment?
Yes, has Club Motorsport exceeded the decibel ordinance as of yet, and has it been documented that they have?
That's what we were having in the earlier part of the discussion is that, well,
Again,
if you could please
okay.
just let us finish here, because we're about ready to move on, because we do have a couple other items to take care of. We need to see what the chief has. It was discussed that, you know, we have not done enforcement as we don't have equipment. The requests have been made here that we look into appropriate ways of testing, because it has been recognized that there is a good amount of noise, especially out on Route 25, and we wouldn't want to hold any business accountable for noise that wasn't created by them. You guys all said if we move on?
I'd be interested in, there's a number of folks with some expertise, or at least ideas, and anything that they could forward,
Yeah, I
you
will
know,
do that.
brand names or apps or whatever,
Yeah, I will.
for at least my benefit, if not for anybody else's.
I have a comment on this gentleman's question, and, you know, Google's a wonderful thing, so as we were having the discussion here, I Googled the decibel chart, and, you know, I can say that like I said before, 69 is a pretty low level. It is just above conversation. In fact, a flushing toilet is 70. So, I'm sure they exceed the noise that you get from a flushing toilet. A lawnmower is 90.
Yeah, but that's standing
A lot-
next to it, right? So,
Yes.
you know, I mean, you have to think about how you're.
Yes, that's
you're
true.
measuring
And
things, right?
decibel is a funny thing, like this other gentleman said, it doesn't
Again,
just
all that
read
will,
frequency
We'll
and
see what's
amplitude, it
told
reads the effect on an eardrum. So that's a little, and again, that's a subjective thing too. However, I'm sure that if we take it, at probably any spot in town, it's gonna exceed 69. I mean, 69 was low, I don't know where that came from, but anyway, anytime you guys wanna come up to my house, I'll provide the coffee, and you can sit there, and you won't need a decimal meter, and see if we have a problem.
thank you, Bill. Chief?
I don't have anything that exciting, so,
I do have a request. Were you in touch with Pat Farley about her best request?
yeah, we've been going back and forth on email.
Okay, she's unable to attend
Yeah,
tonight,
I
so we'll
see
have
that,
to figure
so-
something out, okay?
I will try to do my best to accommodate her. Yeah, nothing too exciting to report, just a lot of housekeeping stuff, been a busy week, trying to get everything taken care of and just keep moving forward. Nothing too exciting to report. Yeah, I really clear that because of it.
I think she was told that whoever directed traffic was going to want to.
Oh, all right. I'd like
All the
to,
police ones.
yeah,
I can give her the old orange.
I would think that, what's his name, would be the person to see that, because the ones that they have just have police on it, and she can't wear them. But Richard
I was
has,
gonna say the fire.
Richard has the regular orange
I
vest.
had to ask you because I told her that I'd follow up, because I didn't know if
Yeah,
that was.
and I thought I
you or
had
Richard.
some old ratty-tatty orange ones that didn't say police, but they do say police, and I'm not comfortable blending
No,
those.
that's a good
So-
idea. We'll talk to Chief Colquitt then.
Yeah.
See if he's got something.
Yeah, I'll send her an email, just.
Where do you get your vest? Can you direct traffic? Do you have your own?
I used to make them in July.
You have one of those, Johnny?
I do,
Shouldn't say that too loud. You're gonna be out there on Saturday.
whatever you want.
Thank you for putting out the signs.
The
I've
speed
seen the
sign.
sign, the speed signs.
The trail, yeah, it's still out now. I
Yeah,
should pick
thank
it
you
up
for
then.
putting them out. I
Yeah.
think that the one that you put out this morning is probably broken though, because as I was running by it, I saw smoke coming out because it went so high.
Oh, when you were running?
Oh,
Yeah, right. I will say I did have somebody stop in about that, and maybe they'll approach you at some point, but, you know, they're glad to see that out because they see issues there, and obviously I'm well aware of the speed that goes through on that road. But their concern is that when they restripe the road, they put in passing lanes right in that area where that sign is, and whether that was a smart move or not, you know.
They did, oh, I know, I was so pleased
They
with
put the passing zone
shoulder.
back there, but at least they took care of the one out.
Yeah, I don't.
I thought they were gonna take the whole passing lane
So
out.
did
I thought that was a
there was gonna be no
conversation.
passing lanes, and
Well, that's what I
probably-
shot for, Dana, but they.
That was
taken
kind of
it
my
all
hope
out.
to see it, no passing zone. I mean, it's all 35 anyway, so I don't know what you're passing at that point. I mean,
I hope there's, two things we're gonna petition, whatever his name is, Bill Lambert for, and now it's 3. One is to make, one Butler's Bridge done, to make that a 3-way stop.
Yeah.
And 2 is, 2 is gonna be get rid of the passing lanes. And, and the third one is those 2 signs down, 113, 84 feet apart. One says 30, one says 35.
When we're talking to the state, one of the things I'd like to consider is putting in another speed limit sign coming towards the village after you come off of Depot Road.
Right.
And then another one after you come out of the school zone, again, going towards the village. Or something that, you know, is kind of a reminder. The other thing I'd like to look into grant-wise is, see it more and more now, that the technology is a little bit better. But Holderness was always famous for having one, and that's a fixed radar sign that is sort of fixed
Right
to
there
the speed
by the
limit
lake
sign.
next to the ice cream shop.
Right, yeah, by the ice cream shop. I remember them having it for many years, but now I think Moultonborough just put in a permanent one, and a lot of other towns have. And so.
Enforce noise ordinance, I can barely hear.
No, it's not.
Somebody told us that those go $2,500.
Yeah.
I don't
The
know,
grants
but
are
I
good
gotta
way to go.
imagine that
They're
that it's
expensive.
actually applicable under grant funding, under NISTA, so it might be something we can apply for, and maybe the state has a match on it, given that it's a state road or something like that, who knows, I haven't even gone that far to explore it, but that's just something thinking down the road, and I'd like to see the board support. I mean, I think.
It's worth exploring, but
I think the
yeah, we
radar- I
had
think-
figures back. I think they were telling us 2,500
Yeah.
because they're all solar powered. But a grant would offset the cost quite a lot.
Right. So that's just something down the road I'd like to see supported, because I think they do work. I mean, and everybody who's driven through towns that have them, you know,
Moultonborough.
it's definitely a reminder. You see that blinking light, especially at night.
DOT came up with those 2, you know, to take 2 of the lanes and close them down. Both lanes are closed down because of the white striping. They're just narrower than they were.
Yeah.
And that fella told us that doing it on 2 sides of the road is more effective at calming and slowing traffic than is speed limit signs. Not that I would not want to add the ones that you wanted, but
Yeah, no, the resident that I spoke with today, he mentioned that he feels that the narrowing of that with the white lines has helped a little bit, and he lives right on that road near there, so.
and I thought you could do it with one side, you know, I mean, but just do it on the.
I'd just like to see something that's more permanent. I mean, it doesn't have to be out in
absolutely.
front of somebody's residence. That would be annoying to them maybe at night, but, you know, find a spot that would be good, one way at least, and see how that works and go the other way. But it's a constant issue, and it has a lot to do with people following their GPS traffic just to get back to 16, and that's really all they're doing.
Yeah.
So, and they fly right along, so.
And we still got a discussion about a small island at 4 corners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a temporary thing to try out, or they're gonna do that. Unfortunate about the passing lane.
You can go down to Obashan and get some yellow paint. Fix it yourself.
What?
You could go down to Obashan and get some yellow paint and fix it yourself.
Little,
And as far as the end of, you know, past the bridge there, coming off Old 25, half of it's ours. We could make it a 2-way stop ourselves. We probably ought to consult Richard before we did anything.
Yeah. It's good ideas. I got nothing else.
It's been a quiet first week. No
I don't know
crime
if it's
sprees.
quiet, but it's been a busy first week.
Not a
but-
lot to fill out on the report, though.
Yeah, no, a lot of admin, just trying to get caught up to speed, a lot of housekeeping things need to be taken care of, but we're getting there, so.
Good.
Progress, moving forward.
Excellent. All right, we've already had our public comment, I suspect. We want to turn it over to the public again, do we, like the other ones?
Can I just make a comment to the chief?
Yes.
It's been nice, it's like no matter where I've been this week, I've seen him, either going over a hill, coming in from Chicorwa. So it's been nice to see him out and about, and I'd like to commend him on his thing last Friday where he was sworn in. It was apparent, Dana, how serious you've taken this. That was obvious in the comments you made, in the ceremony you did. that your family was involved. So that was really just so nice to see.
Yeah, I should jump off that comment as well. I appreciate everybody that was able to make it out. I've heard from a bunch of people who apologize they couldn't make it for whatever reason, that's fine. But they didn't share the photo I was hoping in the paper, but if you actually go on the Sun's website, you'll see a photo and Jamie Gometti took from like the steps of the church. And it was the whole building, the crowd, you know, which was really the whole community thing that I really wanted to have shown in there. So it's good, it's a good article, so on and so forth. So yeah, I thank everybody that was able to make it out. And I met with the school on day one. We had a pretty good meeting, talk about programs moving forward and stuff like that. There's a new program, I know Dan's familiar with it, I know a lot of people heard about DARE. There's a even better program that's gonna be coming out, that one of our residents has already got trained on, and so we're gonna be introducing that in the program. That's gonna be a big help. And trying to get back to reminding kids on bikes that they need helmets. So if you happen to see somebody in town or whatever, just throw a reminder at them. It's kind of fallen by the wayside, and obviously we're going into winter, it won't be much of an issue here, but
14?
16, under 16.
16 and under?
Under 16.
You know what's another thing that's gone by the wayside that I've noticed, particularly when I'm out running? It's people on cell phones.
Yeah.
That's another one that's gone by. There was like really enforced at the beginning, but now that it's been a couple of years, people are just back to using their cell phones.
Yeah, you're right. That's it. Unless somebody makes another comment.
Who you pointing to, him or me?
You keep waving your hand. Are you trying to
I'm
speak
gonna
or you
speak,
swatting
but you can
flies?
let the reporter go first.
We'll let Damon go. He's got a deadline.
Yeah, so I ran into a couple guys at the country store last night or the other night, and they seem to think that we have another officer coming on board. Is that true, or where are we with staffing?
I would just say that we're in the, as I mentioned in what I messaged you, Damon, is that we're in the process of moving forward to restaff the department to best meet the needs of the town.
You want to tell Damon as soon as we have an announcement, we'll call him first.
Yeah.
But we did make a public announcement, didn't you? Did you already make a public announcement? Oh, you didn't.
No.
Well, just based on
We've extended.
the process.
Oh, we've extended,
The
okay.
process we're doing and everything. We'll have that all buttoned up here within the next week or so. So.
Nothing to say now, but if everything goes well, it's safe to say another week
Yeah,
or
the
so.
next meeting.
Yeah.
I just have a question. I was reading the non-public minutes of September 15th, and I'm confused. Because it says you basically voted unanimously to offer the chief of police position to the interview board recommended. The board voted to accept the proposed employment contract prepared by town council. And then they voted to present that proposed 3-year contract to the applicant. But when you were asked 2 weeks ago if we had given a contract, you said no. So I guess my question is, if you voted to accept a contract in non-public to give that contract to the applicant, did you not follow through with what you had already voted on?
Through subsequent negotiation, it was decided to not go with a contract. Those 2 votes in non-public was, negotiating what we would put in an offer under the advice of legal counsel, and then from there we had negotiated contract, to be the way to put it, that we were going to put as preliminary negotiation with the chief, but as we negotiated, we mutually decided.
Do you know the cost it costs the town to have your town council write up a proposed contract?
I don't right now. I'd have to
Okay,
look at
that's
that.
fine, I can get back to you, I just wanted to say.
It was
Okay.
a cover our bases kind of thing, see where we were at. Is that it for tonight, Becky?
That's it.
Cool. Anybody else? David?
Yeah, can I
Can I urge you to correct a few items in a letter concerning roads and trails on map 408, lot 60? Which,
Oh.
before I say anything, I'd like to be clear, I'm not trying to contribute to any problems that Mary Beth Bliss and Peter Van Ryn have. I've encountered fictional roads on my property and I know how frustrating it can be, so. But I don't think the letter that was written helps.
Okay.
So I believe that you discussed it on October 4th, and ironically, I had to leave to go to a road study committee meeting, which was supposed to be
Right.
here that night.
But we were long-winded and we screwed you up.
Right. But perhaps we all should have gone. So the letter's only 2 sentences long, and I surprised even myself by finding 3 errors in it. First, it's not dated, which you might want to correct. Second, the first sentence says that there are no municipal roads, class 6 or otherwise, on Raymond Bliss's survey, except that it does show Washington Hill Road. And if you've already completed the research on class 6 roads, it might be nice if you shared that with the road study committee. And if you haven't, I think it's premature and perhaps could be embarrassing to make that statement to Mary Beth and Peter. And then finally, the second sentence is so overly broad and badly written, it's just completely wrong. So it reads, and quote, "The town makes no determination or opinion, implied or otherwise, on whether any road trail exists, the extent of such road trails, or the legal status of any such road trails beyond what is stated above," unquote. And actually the opposite is true. Only the town can make a determination of where the roads are. So I think it would have been a much more effective response to get somebody in Madison claiming that there was a class 6 road in Tamworth, to just tell them to stay in his own lane, that people from Eden or Madison don't have any say in what's a town road in Tamworth. Plus, there is a committee appointed by the selectmen investigating just exactly that, to determine where the town roads are. So, and the selectmen, only the town meeting can decide what's a town road or what's a discontinued town road. So the selectmen don't even have the authority to make that kind of a statement. So it appears that the letter's trying to be responsive to a property owner complaint, and that's a good thing, but both in this case and in Irene's way, it seems like a lawyer wrote an overly conservative legal letter without any research or even consulting the appropriate RSAs. If you guys have done the research on what class 6 roads are, it would be real good if you could give that stuff to the road study committee. And if you haven't, maybe you could at least talk to that. I mean, it would have been great if that study was completed well before either of these 2 issues came up. So maybe it's appropriate to meet with that committee and see what other resources are necessary to complete that job. But I really urge you to correct the errors in this letter.
I think the letter was written based on available information and some maps and materials that we didn't make a decision on, but we didn't decide whether it was accurate, inaccurate, historical, but it was the best information available to us immediately. The other thing was, there was an issue of timeliness, because the property owner was told that somebody was going to use his property based on a decision made in Madison, going to use his property to run a business. So the petitioner, the property owner, asked us, hey, whatever you got, and if it's nothing notwithstanding, here's the historical record that we have of the home and decisions, etc. So I think the letter was in response to a problem that should have been handled quickly. And additionally, we wanted to make sure that the lawyer, town attorneys, didn't think that we were usurping our power, or et cetera. So that disclaimer is in there. If I had to do it over again, I probably would have called up your chairman of the road study committee and say, you got anything on this? And if he said no,
I think they did. Richard Roberts did that. Richard Roberts looked into it, did all the research, said that there was no Class 6 roads on that property. Then he got a hold of Paul King, and Paul King told him that there is no Class 6 roads on that property. So,
Okay, the issue I have is that there are a number of layouts for roads between what we understand to be Washington Hill Road and the town line, and we haven't identified where they all are. So if you have some unidentified roads that we haven't yet figured out where they are, to say, well, there's none of those roads that we don't know where they are not on this property, it seems a little premature, because you don't know. And it's so much simpler just to say, people in Madison don't get to decide what's a Class 6 road in Canada. That seems to me a very effective, I mean, it's timely, and it's definitive, and it's the truth, as opposed to making statements that you haven't done the research on.
I think it's timely, if I'm putting myself in his position. If that's my property, and you don't have any proof right now to show me that that's a Class 6 road, that to me is private property. Show me proof where there's a Class 6 road. Other than that, give me a piece of paper saying it's not a Class 6 road. Do you have any proof whatsoever that there's a Class 6 road on his property?
And I just approach this from a mathematical point of view. If you have unknowns, you can't make definitive statements.
It's his property. It's his private property.
I understand, but so my suggested answer is, you tell them that people in Madison don't get to say what's a Class 6 road in Tamworth. That's pretty definitive.
I see the point you're making, David. I don't feel that we acted overly precipitously. There was, time constraints trying to help out Peter and Mary Beth. And we did do research, and that we'd asked the road agent and discussed with Paul King. But I think that's part of why the letter was admittedly somewhat vague. It was enough to convey. I'm not saying your suggestion is wrong, but we've done what we've done, and perhaps it's worth looking into more. We may have to revisit it as the road study proves or disproves, further roads on there.
But the survey shows Washington Hill Road, which I think we will all admit is a municipal road. And yet the letter says it doesn't show any municipal roads. So the first sentence is like just incorrect.
That's because Peter was going to take care of that road, so it's not municipal anymore.
I believe the reference is.
I know what
to
you're
his
saying, David,
property.
I'm kidding.
No, it's to the survey, and it's shown on the survey, because it's one of the boundaries of their
Sure.
property. So, I'm just saying, it's not a very well crafted letter.
I think that particular clause was based on his property, not on, 16 could have been there too if it was enough with the same disclaimer. I think it was pertinent solely, the question was pertinent solely to his property, and specifically because Madison, I guess, flipped a coin when they decided what was what.
I don't think Madison really flipped a coin, Damon.
No, I know. Just onto the police department. I just wanted to know. It sounded like you'd have an announcement at the next meeting, relative to maybe a hiring, possibly.
Yeah.
Would that be one officer or two?
Yep.
I mean, is it possible to get to 3 by the end of the year, you think? Or is it something that would have to go back to town meeting?
Yeah.
Or?
At this point, we've only had a chief officially for a week now.
Right.
We are looking to get back, so I wouldn't want to put a timeline like that on Dana. Let's
I guess
let everything go.
Think of it more budget-wise. Would there be enough money to hire 2?
I think there would be. There's a good amount of money. The voters gave us money to work with this year, so we should be in business.
Okay.
Do you have any updates, Steve?
This hazard mitigation thing, it's really interesting stuff. And the next one is November
gonna say the 9th, but I don't think I'm right.
You guys.
17th.
November 17th at 1 o'clock at the fire station. If nothing else, just to show the knowledge, demonstrate the knowledge and the safety concerns of the road agent, the fire chief, police chief, the fire wards, just, wealth of information.
The planning board, CIP.
Planning board, all sorts of folks, and granted, if you show up and sign in, it's probably gonna help us recoup $2,000 from FEMA, but we're gonna do that with the number of people participating now, so if you're interested, do it.
We should get Pat involved, because she always has food and drinks at her events there, so that gets people through the door.
She sent Dave, and he didn't bring anything.
That's right, David.
That's right, Dave showed up.
That's
Yeah.
right.
But he didn't bring any food.
I'll send her a text later and tell her she's gonna do better with it.
I think that's all I did.
That's all. Did you have anything, Dan? I don't have anything either.
Can I bring up, can I bring up something just so if people do watch, they'll know that there will be a Veterans Day ceremony on November 11th at 11 o'clock at the town.
11/11/11.
11/11/11.
That's easy to remember. Thank you, Peg.
Do we know the official date that they're gonna close down Chicarwa Bridge? Because I was gonna put it on the exchange, but I haven't been able to find.
No, we haven't, we don't have one, no one yet.
Okay, because they did have it closed down the other day, which sort of threw everybody off. And I know they have the detour signs already posted up on 16 started, so I was just gonna put it on the exchange if we
I'll let
found
you
out
know.
actually when
I
they.
thought they were
I'll let you
looking
know when
for
I-
23rd, 25th,
Well, I
somewhere
thought
that
so too
week.
until I saw the
But it was a
signs
little bit
go
up in the air, yeah. They have their own schedule, Becky,
Yeah,
you should know
yeah,
that by
I
now.
do.
Yeah.
All right, so we don't have an official date yet. Okay.
I thought the 23rd, like I said, was thrown out, but I didn't think that was 100% firm.
No.
And it must not be if they're doing stuff now, so.
Right, because a couple of people are saying their driveway view of coming down Chicarwa Hill is going to be quite blocked with the number of signs that are already posted on there. Never mind when the snowplow hits them.
Snowplow takes care of everything.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll block the noise from CMI.
Thank you, Mrs. Poirier. Not seeing too much else here, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I said I'd entertain, I was gonna let you do it, screw up Darlene's
So
paperwork.
moved.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.